Now, if I'm the opponent to that, if I'm one of those people, I'm like, no, y'all just
Yeah, made this one up.
You know,
Well, I don't care if he doesn't even bring it in until we go to closed session, just to show up, so I don't want.
we're streaming
Well,
live.
I'll turn it 7 o'clock.
It is 7.
Y'all ready? Y'all ready? Ready. This time I'd like to call the meeting back to order. Mr. Quick, you have the floor.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight we're here for a public hearing to consider an application for a 5-megawatt utility scale facility located at tax map 2338. I will read the notice and then introduce our guests to start tonight. So this is a public notice, Board of Supervisors. In accordance with Section 15.2.2204 of the Code of Virginia as amended, and pursuant to Section 15.2.2310 of the Code of Virginia as amended, the Richmond County Board of Supervisors hereby gives notice that a public hearing will be held starting at 7 p.m. Thursday, January 12, 2023 in the Richmond County Public Meeting Room, 101 Court Circle, Warsaw, Virginia, to receive public comment on the following: application from DG Virginia CS LLC, NextEra Energy, for a special exception permit in order to allow for a 5-megawatt utility scale solar facility to be located at tax map 2338, 14083 Historyland Highway, Warsaw, Virginia. In your board packet, you have several documents that hopefully you've had a chance to review. First is a memo from the Berkeley Group. The Berkeley Group, we have worked with them on several occasions for this type of thing. The Berkeley Group was tasked with reviewing the application from DG Virginia CS to ensure that the application did in fact hit and meet the criteria that our ordinance does require. Their opinion was that it does do that. The second set of documents are the special exception permit conditions recommended to you from the Richmond County Planning Commission. These conditions are very much, I don't want to say identical, but fairly identical to all of the conditions that we've seen in the past, with the exception of changing some names and some roads and some things that are site-specific to this project. So those conditions, I believe, so far have served us well. And then your last document is a site plan that shows the proposed site layout. With us tonight is a team from NextEra, led by Josh White. I know he's going to have a quick presentation to review with the board, and then I'll go through a quick presentation as well, and then there'll be time for discussion and ultimately the public hearing.
Josh, if you'll just turn the clicker on, it's in the. For me.
Is there a power button on?
Side button.
Okay.
I knew it wasn't too complex.
I figured it out. Good evening, everyone. My name is Joshua White from NextEra Energy Resources. I want to provide a brief recap of the project presentation that Morgan introduced. I know many of you have heard this and been through this presentation before. I'll do a quick recap and overview of it and then open up to any questions from the community members that have joined us tonight. This is Revolution Solar Project, owned by DG Virginia CS, a wholly owned subsidiary of NextEra Energy Resources. Proposing to construct a 5-megawatt solar photovoltaic generating facility in unincorporated Richmond County, Virginia. A couple highlights: NextEra Energy Resources is the world's largest generator of renewable energy from the wind and sun. Nearly all of NER's electricity comes from clean and renewable resources. Operating facilities in now over 38 states and Canada. And this is a map There are more sites now as of today, but this shows all of the operating facilities we do have across the U.S. and Canada. The project team is complemented by LaBelle Associates, our engineer of record, as well as our environmental consultant, ERM, both of which have representatives here with us tonight. And here's a project overview. The proposed project footprint is on 38 acres of land. It's 5 megawatts AC. The interconnecting utility is Dominion Energy. The parcel is located at 14083 History Lane Highway in Warsaw, Virginia. Again, like Morgan mentioned, the plan was found to be consistent with Richmond County's comprehensive plan. A couple notes we have taken into account: avoiding wetlands, water, and natural resources, minimizing the amount of tree clearing we have to do, overall maintaining significant buffers from any natural or historical areas. Some site investigation and due diligence we've already done to avoid the impact to wetlands and other waters. Minimal impact to Chesapeake Bay protection areas, as well as avoiding impact to threatened or endangered species. We are avoiding all known cultural and historic resources. The project does include an exclusion zone for the on-site cultural resource. The historic resource 0790072 is owned by the project landowner and will not be impacted directly. Some additional due diligence: stormwater runoff will be tightly controlled in accordance with all state and local regulations. Mitigation measures implemented on site as needed to control the quantity and quality of stormwater runoff. The existing topography of the project area will require some grading and excavation to accommodate the tracking style of the solar panels. However, all grading and earthwork will be conducted in accordance with applicable state and local stormwater regulations. And finally, the project will obtain all required local, state, and federal permitting prior to early construction. A couple additional notes. The project has an expected life cycle of approximately 25 to 35 years and will not undergo any expansions in the future. The project would deliver up to 5 megawatts of power to the Dominion Energy-owned electrical grid. And the project will include a connection to an existing 34.5 kV overhead electrical line as shown on the site plan. It's a little hard to see in this picture. Construction activities for the project are planned or tentatively planned to begin on or around June of this year and are anticipated to be complete within 9 months. That's it. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions at this point?
That's so the black box is our laydown area. That would be like construction vehicle parking, material and equipment staging area, and then you've got the road. The other dark area is the access road into the site.
Now, is this project gonna be owned by y'all, and y'all just sell the electricity to
Yes, sir.
Dominion Power? And that's the plan for y'all to continue?
It'll be sold. It'll be sold to Dominion Power, subscribed to by Dominion customers.
If you're 5 megawatts of power, is that kind of controlled by how many solar panels are there that do that? So if they made more efficient panels, could you replace them and make it an 8 megawatts like?
That's an engineering question that luckily we've got Jared here with us today. He can answer that. I don't think it would be that drastic of an improvement,
Okay.
but in theory, yes.
Yeah, in theory, that's how it would work.
Okay.
More efficient panel up the capacity. I will say with a caveat though, Virginia has passed the permit by rule regulation. So if we exceeded 5 megawatts, we would have to go through that approval process, which is more state regulated.
Okay. Thank you.
I got a question, but it ain't really directed at this particular project. I've been noticing when I'm driving by these projects, you got some that's got these huge banks of panels. The panel itself is big, and then you got some that are smaller, that lower to the ground. What's the benefit for that? I mean, this is just a curiosity for the solar world.
Yeah, so I'll let Jared answer that question, but what I will say is that depending on where you're at geographically, there's certain ground clearance requirements. Obviously up north where you get a lot of snow, you've got to be so far off the ground, and in the south you can be a little closer to the ground. There's two different types of panels that they'll use, either a fixed tilt system or a tracking system, which the panels tilt, they rotate with the track of the sun to provide maximum solar power. There's a couple different factors, but any more specific, Jared, that you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, the height of the panels is regulated by the town code. If we can go up to 20, 24 feet, we will. But from an operation and maintenance standpoint, that's not exactly the easiest to work with. So we try to stay to a portrait like this project would be, which, you're going to end up somewhere between like 10 and 12 feet at the maximum height.
I just noticed, like I said, if I drive by them, I see some of them are huge, some of them are not, and I just wonder why they're not all created equally. If one more efficient than the other, one draws more current, one requires less material to put it up.
Yeah, I mean, it's ultimately up to trying to, from a civil perspective, we try to balance it civilly, like meeting the town code while still maximizing electrical efficiency. So sometimes you can do 3 in portrait and it works out better from an electrical standpoint. But typically what we found is if you do a 2 in portrait and then to meet 4 water regs, you have to provide the same amount of space in between each row, and that works out the best.
Okay. Any more questions this time? Thank you, Wood. Don't run off. All right, y'all have, okay.
Mr. Thomas, the conditions for this project and all of our projects have limited the height to 18 feet. So I know what you're talking about. I think you've probably seen the project down on the way to Tappahannock. And those panels are bigger than ones I've ever seen as well, but our conditions are a maximum height of 18 feet.
I just was curious, what's the difference? Why the different makes them different models, I guess.
Right? This clicker has not been a friend of ours today.
You're doing
There we
that.
go. Okay. All right, I'm here to review a lot of the same information, and I'm going to try to be as brief as possible on a lot of it. We've seen it. We're going to look at an overview of the application and the site plan, overview of the standard conditions, overview of financial benefits to Richmond County, and then project recommendation. As I mentioned, this application was reviewed with our consultants at Berkeley Group. They've helped review this. They've done this several times for us and have determined that it does meet the requirements of our ordinance. Planning Commission did conduct on August the 8th, 2022, the 2232 review. That's the review to determine that an application substantially complies with the comprehensive plan, in which they found that to be the case. On October the 11th, 2022, the Planning Commission voted 6-0 to recommend approval of the project to the Board of Supervisors with the conditions. All required advertising notices were done so in accord with the Virginia Code. Again, we're looking at this piece of property located between Route 3 and 360 intersection and between Islington Road, a 5 megawatt project. The total parcel size is 100 acres, proposed development portion is 38 acres. Property zoned A1, tax map 2338, owners Peggy Davis, Bernard, and Mary Davis. Project location, we know where that is. I want to show you two different things here, and I just want to show you kind of the work the Planning Commission did bringing this project to you. What you're seeing on the screen here is the proposed site plan. This was the site plan that was presented to the county when the application was initially submitted to us 6 or 7 months ago. And you see in this application, you see number one, how the access road borders an adjacent property, and you see where the buffers and setbacks on that front corner, on the north corner, are at the time I believe they were proposed at about 50 foot setbacks. And with the Planning Commission and working with NextEra, we were able to do three things really. We were able to bring the road and the staging area more to the interior of the property, so that it did not have a direct impact with the adjacent property to the north. So you'll see that. You'll see the additional buffer space of 200 feet on the front portion of the project, on I guess probably the east side of the project. You'll see where it was limited buffering or setback is more the right word, but setback 1 to 200 feet. And then you will see that because of that change, we were forced to shift the panels back a little bit into the woods. So in the original plan, there was very minimal wood disturbance, and I believe it went from 2,500 square feet of disturbance in the trees to about 5,000 square feet of disturbance in the trees. Ultimately, by my calculations, the nearest home is 500 feet away, and it still provides at least 400 feet of woods between any of the homes on Hamilton Avenue. Not Hamilton, Waller Street, I'm sorry. So you'll see the amendments that were made throughout the Planning Commission discussions to try to make the project fit the site a little bit better in our perspective to keep it from impacting the adjoining properties to a greater extent. Summary of conditions, again, we've seen these many times. We are going to require a site plan, decommissioning plan, emergency response plan, construction traffic management plan, E&S, and stormwater management plans. Vegetative buffering, we've got a buffering layout that we have used several times, and we're recommending that the buffering layout that was presented by the Planning Commission several projects ago be enforced. Setbacks, the 200 feet on that front setback was important for us to be able to get. The other setbacks weren't as important because of where the property lays and where the woods come on the rear of the property. We were able to have plenty and sufficient there. Project will have a construction traffic plan identifying entrances and routes of travel. We reviewed that in pretty good detail in December. There were some issues that I believe NextEra answered a lot of our questions, and hopefully satisfied your questions there on that traffic plan. And this is the traffic plan, just kind of the sketch, where we're talking about no left turns at Walnut Street into the site, no U-turns, all traffic into the site, especially the heavy traffic, the trucks, the dump trucks, will be forced to make right turns into the site from the stoplight area. And in road repairs, we will have bonds on this project, as we do for 100% of the anticipated repairs that may need to be made along public routes. Environmental concerns, again, stormwater management plan, erosion and sediment control plan are all part of the site plan, and those are state codes and regulations that we follow. Permitted materials, cadmium, telluride, cadmium, beryllium, Gen X, field applied Teflon coating, other materials. We have prohibited those materials once again. Our decommissioning procedures, which we believe are good decommissioning standards. Clearly, we won't tell if they're very good until 25 or 30 years from now. But based off of the decommissioning standards I've seen elsewhere, I believe ours are very satisfactory. We talked about it this morning. This application, I think I misspoke this morning about decommissioning. I said every 5 years. Every 7 years, they have to re-benchmark their estimated cost. So still, by the time you get to that 25 or 30-year period, you should have an updated number as to what that decommissioning would cost. And then again, the bond doesn't come into play unless the company fails to meet their requirements. We do not require bonding should this facility be purchased by a investor-owned or member-owned utility. And so you just asked the question, will they own the project and sell the power? So as long as they're selling the power to Dominion Energy, they will hold a bond. If for some reason Dominion Energy were to come to them and say, hey, we want to purchase your project and own it outright, we would then no longer require that bond, and that's consistent with what we've done in the past, not requiring the member-owned or investor-owned utilities to bond their projects. And then, of course, cost reimbursement will be submitted for reimbursement for all engineering, legal, consulting fees that the county may have or has currently had to get up to this point, and then obviously the fees that we'll have with our third-party engineers during inspections. So our screening recommendation, this was created by Mary and James Packett several projects ago, and it's one that the Planning Commission has felt very strongly about, and it's one that we're recommending is used once again on this project. And you'll see the ability that they have to choose several different species of trees, 10 feet intervals between them on 2 rows. Talking about the financial benefit to Richmond County, something that I think that you are interested in understanding. Small project, we've talked about the small projects in the past that don't really provide a huge long-term impact to the county, but I am estimating a 25-year financial benefit to Richmond County at $300,000. This will come from 2 sources. This will come from your revenue share, which is $1,400 per megawatt per year, indexed every 5 years at 10%. That would begin in 2026, the indexing. So you can get the money, $1,400, it begins indexing in 2026. And in the land value, again, this is an estimate that we use for the in-fenced area of about 38 acres, seeing that land increase by roughly $11,000 in value per acre, ultimately about $3,000 a year in additional taxes from that perspective. So overall financial benefit of about $300,000. Project recommendation, application site plan are in conformance with the ordinance requirements outlined in the zoning ordinance. We did use the services of the Berkeley Group. Special exception conditions pending further amendments to the conditions, if there are any. The conditions in current form are consistent with SEP conditions from past projects, and we believe adequately protect Richmond County and ultimately adjoining properties. Site location is located to the extent that it should have a minimal impact on adjacent properties, especially the residential communities. As I said, that tree line back on Wallace Street at the smallest point should have 400 feet of remaining vegetation, existing timber that will not be disturbed. Should be very minimal impact, no impact long term to that community. Obviously, the construction process could present some noise. Environmental, the entire footprint is 100 acres of this parcel. 38 is being proposed to be placed within the fence. Gives us plenty of space for stormwater erosion and sediment control requirements. All of our RPAs have been identified. The 100-foot buffers are being honored. All E&S permitting will be handled through Richmond County. Stormwater permitting will be handled through Virginia DEQ. County roadways, the impacts along outline delivery routes will be covered through the appropriate bonding in coordination with the county and VDOT to ensure that tax dollars are not used to repair damages caused, if damages are caused during the construction of this facility. The decommissioning of this site, which is included in the conditions, is designed to protect the county and property owners from adverse impacts when and if the site is no longer in use, and that would come into play. The bonding would come into play should a company fail to meet their responsibility, and then the anticipated revenue that the county would see over a 25-year period from this project. And with that, staff does recommend, after recommendation from the Planning Commission, that the Board of Supervisors approve this project. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Quick at this time?
Jared, you didn't mean to, you just were signing in? Okay.
Okay. Mr. Langford, come up to the podium, please.
Well, I'm not quite as optimistic as y'all are. I've got property adjoining it. I've been living in this county for 48 years, and for the last 40 years, all I've heard is we're gonna keep Richmond County rural and scenic. If anybody can tell me that them solar panels down at Red Hill is very scenic. Now, what I call scenic is cows, pasture, soybean, corn, that's what I call it. Back off the road where you can't see it, that's one thing. But for me personally, it's joining my property. I don't go for this. I've talked to the people down at Red Hill that got land down there, and they feel that you guys, what they came to talk to you about, fell on deaf ears. Now, I'm just being totally honest, but I don't know the Davis family that own it. I have nothing against them. I don't know anything about this company. I have nothing against them. But to me, it's not what I would like to see in this county. I'm sorry, it's just a bad feel about it. Is there oil in these solar panels? I mean, I keep hearing that there's, after 25 years, the land, you can't use it if you, for whatever reason. I mean, I don't know why you would want to use it, but I'm just saying, I understand that it does something to the soil. Am I right about that, or can anybody tell me about that, or?
Yeah, so it actually rests the soil.
I'm sorry, I can't hear
No,
very.
that's okay. So it gives the soil rest, right? So once it decommissions and everything's taken out in the soil, it's been found to be healthier than what it was 25 years prior.
So you're saying it doesn't hurt the ground at all?
No, sir.
Now, does it have oil in the solar panels?
Oil?
Any kind of oils that
No,
can?
no, it's protected pretty much like your cell phone. Everything's encased.
Okay, well, I'm just asking, that was a couple of my concerns. But anyway, you know how I feel about it. I'm sorry, I don't agree with it. But that's the way it is, okay? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else before I close public comment? All right.
You got one.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, Cliff.
James Clifford Ball, 8351 History Land Highway, Warsaw, Virginia. I hadn't intended on speaking, and again, Mr. Langford, I speak to you in the same way that you were speaking to the others. I really don't know you, and I don't have any faults, nothing faults to you. What I wanted to say to y'all, and I want the rest of the people that are here tonight to hear from me for whatever matters that I'm speaking. I've been trying my best to follow what y'all have been doing on these solar panel farms and your research into them and your questions that you were asking about the oil and the soil and the decommissioning and the revenue for the county and yes, the aesthetics of it have been looked at very hard by y'all. Or excuse me, not hard, very seriously by y'all. And I feel like that you have put the due diligence in it that's necessary for the county to feel comfortable with whatever your decision is. I will agree, sir, with you also, and Richard, with your comment about the panels down at Red Hill. It looks big. It looks different. It's a change. If everything stays the same, it'll be boring, and we'll go back to buggies and rock wheels on our carriages. Well, change is which part of life. I will say this about the visibility of these panels. I recently had the opportunity to go to Florida to see my sister. And driving down Interstate 95, I was personally surprised with how many solar panel farms there are along Interstate 95 going down through North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. The point I wanted to make about this was, yes, I saw it, but I saw what the effort was to buffer them from the public. They're all like what we're seeing now, they're new, they're early. But I could see the ones that I was noticing, and I say that this way because some of the times it was like, oh, there's a solar panel farm. Oh, go and look how big that is. I didn't even hardly see it. And I believe that it's the sort of thing where it's part of the change that we're going to have in our area. We're having the opportunity to use it to our advantage for the county, for our revenues, for the, the environment, for our economics, but for our environmental health too. And I encourage you to approve this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cliff.
Anyone else? All right, at this time, we'll close the public hearing. Anyone have any questions, either for the county or for next era? Okay. We will vote on this at our February meeting, as usual. We've got one more thing we'd like to go over tonight while everybody's here.
Billy's got one thing too.
Billy,
if you want to go with
you
him
got it.
first.
Yeah, I was able to get in touch with Keith Wheeling this afternoon, and he has agreed to continue serving on the IDA for District 3.
Okay. So that is your motion?
That's my motion.
Okay. If there's no discussion, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? You want me to start or you want this?
No, you go for it.
All right. I guess Morgan has been back and forth with Mr. Sheehan that owns a piece of land at the firehouse in Newland, that donated the land for the firehouse in Newland, about purchasing a piece for our EMS Station 3. And he got back with Morgan today while we were in the meeting, right?
Yes, sir.
And Morgan had made him an offer, and he has accepted the offer so we can have the fire station and the rescue station in Newland side by side.
Good.
So in front of you, the offer was $23,000 that he accepted, and you asked where did the $23,000 come from. I spoke with the Commissioner of the Revenue's Office, and I asked them, based off of our current assessed values of property, when a single acre is subdivided out of a larger parcel, in a certain area of the county, it depends on where you are on what that acre is assessed for, but in a location like this, the assessed value currently is $23,000. And so that was the offer. I'd asked Mr. Sheehan to provide us a number, and he then directed it back to me and said, I'm open to offers. And so that's where the offer came from. He accepted it. He seems genuinely excited to be able to help public safety of Richmond County in the future in selling this. So we will need to survey. So what you're seeing here on the screen is just an estimate. You'll see a kind of a block that I've drawn on the GIS immediately adjacent to the Newland Company 3 Volunteer Fire Department. So that's an approximate what you're seeing there. We will survey this on our own. We'll take that cost of an acre. However, we'll try to match it up with the adjoining property line as best as possible to keep it consistent. He has indicated that as part of the purchase contract, there's a culvert that currently sits probably on this identified 1 acre, and he has asked that the county relocate that culvert so that farm field can be accessed, because that's the access currently to that farm field. And so he has asked that if we purchase this property, that we do include moving that culvert somewhere else on that property, which I don't think is a problem, and I think it's something we could do fairly easily with the contractor. And so the resolution in front of you is the resolution pretty much authorizing us to enter into a purchase agreement and submitting a purchase agreement to Mr. Sheehan, or Newland Enterprises LP, I believe is the official name, submitting a purchase agreement to them, very consistent to the purchase agreements that we've done in the past, most recently with Farnham.
Okay. Anyone have any questions, anything about this? Okay, then I guess it's in my district, so I'm gonna make a motion that we adopt this resolution and let Mr. Quick move forward on purchasing this piece of property. If there's no discussion, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
And you ask, okay, when could this be done? I think our current capital improvement shows this facility in the 25-26 range. So Farnham hopefully will get under construction here in the next 6 to 8 months, and then this one would back it up. And I think our intention would be to try to build a exact or similar building on both locations to cut down, because these will be satellites. The main building will obviously still be in town, so what we're looking at is probably a 3,000 square foot building, 2 bays, climate controlled, 2 bunk rooms, a kitchen, a day room, and some storage. So we're not looking for award-winning Taj Mahals for these facilities, really just for useful function to serve the upper and lower ends of the county.
All right. Do you have anything else?
No, sir.
Anybody else have anything to bring before the board? All right. If not, we're adjourned until our February meeting. Thank y'all for coming out tonight.